This is Will from Will Development. This is my 250th weekly update. Quarter of the way to 1,000, which is a lot of weeks. Be coming up on year 4, I think. Finishing up year 3 right now, I believe, of all this. I could figure that out, but I don't care that much this very second to figure out that sort of stuff. So here we are. So this week, much like last week, ups and downs. The only difference was last week I knew exactly what caused my ups and downs. This week, I have no idea what caused it, and I don't know what I could possibly do to prevent it in the future, so it's one of those, I'll have to pay really close attention to what's going on between my diet. Ooh, my hair looks like a mess, I don't care. Between my diet and my everything. Diet, sleep habits, training, all that. But first and foremost, my wounds from my concrete fun from last week have all but healed. The worst ones on my hands here are still lingering on, but the scabs have peeled and the wounds are getting smaller by the day. It's like the opposite of Rich Piana. Or Rich Piana now. Anyway, so that's all healing up nicely, and it was actually healed up enough by Monday for me to do my Zercher squats with little to no obstruction at all. Speaking of, those went very well. I was very pleased with how my squats went on Monday. Everything actually felt really strong and really good. Monday, 5x5 at 136, which was a number I've been wanting to get to on a front squat variation for a while. Being able to do 5 sets of 5 of that made me feel really good, and I felt strong throughout all of them. That's pretty much it there. But then something weird happened on Tuesday. Tuesday morning I woke up and I felt, okay. I didn't feel great or anything like that. I just felt like, it's Tuesday, Maybe a little more run down, but I was like, you'll wake up, you'll feel better throughout the day. And I kind of did, and then I ate lunch, and then I went back to work, and while I was at work, right around 3 o'clock, just all of a sudden, my entire body just got sore. Every piece of me was just sore, just super, super sore. And I got that feeling in my mouth like I was getting sick, but I wasn't congested. I didn't have a real headache, but I felt dizzy and kind of groggy everywhere. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to keep trying to move. I'm just going to try to get all this done and just get through it. Go to the gym and see how I am when I get there. And I got to the gym Tuesday night, and I started doing my warm-ups, and I was like, you know what, I am not going to have the strength to do my actual warm-ups that I like to do, and then my training, so I'll cut the warm-ups in half, and I mean sets and reps of everything, which I did. I cut everything exactly in half. Instead of 3 sets of 25 of each thing, 4 sets of 25, I ended up just doing 2 sets of 12 on everything, and I said this is just going to have to do because it's all I've got in the tank tonight. And then I said, because I really need to get this pressing done, and I needed to get done well. And it did go quite well. Except basically instead of taking maybe 2.5 to 5 minutes between each set, like I would on a day like that, on a normal press day, or just normal working set days, for everything I take about 2.5 to 5 minutes rest, between those sets, because I need to focus on them, and I need to make sure I'm fresh enough, and I found 5 minutes is enough to where I haven't totally cooled off. I feel like anything over 10 minutes, I've cooled off a bit. That's just me personally, and I think it kind of varies between people, but because I know some people, they stay warm forever. And I don't mean physiologically. I'm sure there's actual research, and I've seen some quotes about how long it actually takes to cool off and that kind of thing, and how it can take up to hours to really cool off. That's fine, but personally feeling how I feel, if I feel cooled off or not ready to go, I feel that way after about 10 minutes. So I usually go 2.5 to 5 minutes is a good number for me. So I ended up taking about 8 minutes in between each set because I just felt so terrible and weak and everything was rough. Still managed to get it done pretty well though. And then came home Tuesday night, knocked out at like 8:30, forced myself to lay down at like 8:39. Woke up 2 or 3 times throughout the night, but I had this idea and I went for it, and I put like 3 blankets on the bed and turned off the fans and made it cool enough so I could fall asleep, but hot enough under the covers so I would start sweating throughout the night. And whether it was that or just the sleep in general that helped, it's tough to say. You know, when you attack a problem and you need to take care of it quickly, it's hard to say exactly what fixed the problem. You know what I mean? To put a real finger on it, because there's so many variables. Was it because I actually sweated out last night and got rid of some, sweated out whatever was wrong with me, literally just broke the fever by forcing it out. I don't even know if that's actually a thing, but honestly it's a thing I've done for years and it always seems to help me. Or was it just the fact that I finally slept that long? I mean, I woke up 2 or 3 times throughout the night anyway. So who knows? All that matters is it's over. I felt fine by Thursday. Yesterday I felt really, totally fine. And then today I felt pretty damn good actually. I went in and I did my deadlift training. And it felt strong. Everything felt really strong, which made me feel really good. Like no back pain at all on any of the exercises, which tend to give me some trouble a lot of time. I do some Romanian deadlifts and stuff like that to warm up, and some bent over rows to warm up. And hello, some clothes on the floor here. Almost tripped over. And today I didn't have any of that pain, and it felt really good. And so did the deadlifts in general. I felt like I was able to keep my low back real tight and strong, and everything felt strong and good. So I was very happy with how that went today, and I worked up to about 310. I say about, I wrote down 310 on my, week of videos, but I don't exactly know how much the hex bar I'm using weighs, so I'm saying about 310. And so everything went good. And that will conclude week 11, or 11 weeks out, which means next week I'm 10 weeks out from the comp, and it is crunch time for sure. One thing I do want to explain about my programming, my logic behind my programming, is I haven't actually done any of these specific exercises or events that are going to be happening in the comp, and there's logic behind that. The closer I get to the comp, the closer I will mimic comp settings. So like with my pressing, for example, I'm pressing 2 days a week, and right now I'm only push pressing one of those days, and I'm only clean pressing on one of those days as well. As I get closer to the comp, I believe I have it set for about 8 weeks out, I will start cleaning and push pressing on both days of my press days, on both of my press days, to as closely mimic the movement I'm going to be doing. And the reason I didn't do that is because I had about 3 or 4 weeks where I could still glean some extra strength from just strict pressing, which in my opinion is the best way to train your pressing strength. If your strict press goes up, your push press goes up, period. I mean, if you don't agree with me there, I don't know what to tell you. I don't see how you could argue with that. But so that was my plan, do a lot of strict pressing going in, then go into your push pressing, because push pressing is, to me, it's even more of a skill than necessarily a display of strength. Especially if you do it like a jerk, where you're jumping underneath the bar basically, which is possible, but that's not what I'll be doing. I will be push pressing it, and it's a skilled movement that I don't practice often, because I would rather be more focused on gaining strength and then translating that strength and expressing it through a push press, which will then increase my pressing power by quite a bit. I've seen some people kind of put percentages on it. A lot of people estimate 15 to 20% more. A lot of guys I've seen say online, I don't know if there's like an official study anywhere, I doubt it, but you get the idea there. And it's the same thing with the deadlift, right? So right now I'm pulling from 14 inches on tires, and the weights are nowhere near they're nowhere near the comp weight just yet, which is starting at 500, which is all I plan to pull that day anyway. But as I get closer to the comp, that's probably going to be about 6 weeks out. I'm going to start training right at the 18 inches by pulling out of a rack on the hex bar. And it's the same thing about 8 weeks, maybe even 5 weeks out. I'm going to start practicing with I have it written down on my schedule or my programming. I have it all written out, and there was logic behind the planning of how long each one would have. For the yoke run and the yoke squat, it's the same thing. As I get closer to the comp, I'll start to mimic those movements even more. And even on the squat, what I'm actually doing with that is starting the weight higher, lower than the comp. The comp's 350. I'll be doing it probably at just 2 something, basically, like 275, at basically just a parallel. Work that for 1 week, then the next week I'll drop it below parallel, whatever the next notch down is, and work that same weight. And then I'll slowly bump the weight up from there, 10, 15 pounds a week. Then when I get to the actual comp, my plan is to hit 350 before the comp for at least 2 or 3 reps, and then have another week of working it where I'm just doing rep work, which hopefully shouldn't be a problem because I've been practicing doing sets of 25. Now granted, the weight's been laughable with those sets, but it's gotten me used to squatting a lot of times. It's gotten me used to the volume of squatting. Now I just basically need to translate into the strength of squatting, which I've still been doing with my front squats, or I should say searcher squats. So there's logic behind what I'm doing and why I'm not doing certain things. And why I practice certain movements throughout the year and then other movements I don't. So, in case anybody's wondering, there's sort of an explanation for that. Like another quick pro tip, just for you. On the log, I personally believe if you're training log, you should clean and press every single rep you do. I don't think it's a good idea to get in the habit of pressing away for reps with a log. It's going to limit you in general, but when you have a comp coming up and then it's a clean and press for every rep, which is pretty common in strongman, especially with a log, if it's not a max weight one, you're going to be thankful that you have the ability to clean and press with any particular weight, because if you've only been basically cleaning it once and pressing it 12 times or 10 times, whatever, then you find out you have to clean it every single time. It's going to be easier for someone to add weight to a movement they've already been doing, cleaning and pressing, than it is for somebody to then have to go back. You're going to have to drop the weight because there's pretty much no way you're going to be able to clean the same weight you can press 10 times if you've only cleaned it once. It's just going to wear you down. Your conditioning is probably not going to be good enough unless the weight is so much lower. So that's an example of something I would practice year round, where it's like always clean and press the log. Axle, different story. 9 times out of 10, they don't make you, clean the axle every single time when you press it. It's usually one clean and then a bunch of presses or a max weight. And then a dumbbell, it's kind of the same thing. Like, usually the weight that they pick for reps is so much lighter than what most guys can do. I don't necessarily think you have to clean it every time before you do it, but on log, it's so much more taxing. I mean, numbers, not numbers, what's the word? It's exponentially harder on a log, in my opinion, because the clean on a log is so much more taxing than, say, the clean on a dumbbell. Obviously, it's all relative, but you get the idea. So anyway, just remember there's always some logic behind what somebody's doing. If you don't understand the logic, ask them what their logic is behind what they're doing. And then if you just think the logic is flawed, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it completely. Results speak, though. So, sometimes, and unfortunately in a lot of the strength sports, results are very challenging to quantify because there's a lot of factors. Kind of like how come I felt better Wednesday than I did Tuesday, Was it the sleep? Was it sweating it out? Was it my diet being back on track. Who knows, you know? It's not like it got all that crazy over the weekend or over the 4th either. Yeah, it got a little crazy over the weekend. I ate a few things I don't normally eat. Sort of. I mean, like pork. That's about it. Because I had some Rios. But anyway, try to always have some logic behind what you're doing. And if you have a program and you can't logically explain why you're doing a certain thing on a certain day, then you should question that. If you don't, then what's your excuse?